Hello and a very good morning. You're watching the Breakfast News on Rajya Sabha television with me, Frank Pereira. Here are this morning's headlines. Prime Minister Narendra Modi delivers 37th Singapore lecture, says nations backing terror outfits should be made accountable. Joint Parliamentary Committee meeting on Land Bill inconclusive to seek 3-week extension of deadline to submit report. Non-performing asset levels at unacceptable levels, says Finance Minister Arun Jaitley after meeting chiefs of PSU banks, claims recent sector-specific announcements will mitigate crisis. Major political parties in Nepal agree to table Constitution Amendment Bill over Madheshi demands, move after fresh round of violence following killing of 4 protesters. And the US issues a worldwide travel alert to its citizens amidst recent terror threats. US President to meet French counterpart François Hollande at the White House to discuss steps to fight the Islamic State. Well, it is the second day of Prime Minister Narendra Modi's visit to Singapore today. The two premiers are expected to sign the India-Singapore strategic partnership to boost bilateral ties. The two leaders will also unveil a commemorative joint stamp to mark the 50th anniversary of the establishment of diplomatic ties between India and Singapore. Earlier on Monday, Prime Minister, in his lecture entitled India's Singapore Story, said that he drew many lessons from the city.
Singapore's success in overcoming odds leads me to seek a partnership that addresses the challenges of 21st century, from food and water to clean energy and sustainable habitats. And in many ways, Singapore will also influence the course of our region in this century.
Singapore's success has been an inspiration for India, and India is drawing many lessons from it, emphasized Prime Minister Narendra Modi as he addressed the 37th Singapore lecture on Monday. After his trip to Malaysia, this is Prime Minister's second and final leg of his 4-day visit to Southeast Asia. Highlighting the importance of India-Singapore ties, Modi said the relation shared by the two countries was strategic and wide-ranging. The Prime Minister will hold talks with his counterpart Lee Hsien Loong today on ways to enhance bilateral ties on the occasion of the commemoration of the 50th anniversary of the diplomatic ties. Prime Minister in his lecture also reiterated India's position on terrorism, saying the world must speak in one voice.
The world must speak in one voice and act unison. There will be political, legal, military and intelligence efforts. But we must do more. Countries also must be held accountable for centuries' support, arms and funds.
Late on Monday, Prime Minister Modi was treated to a vegetarian dinner by PM Lee and his wife at an Indian restaurant in Little India. Modi tweeted, "Diwali lights and delicious Indian food. Thank you, PM Lee." On Tuesday, apart from bilateral talks with his counterpart Lee, PM Modi will also meet Singapore President and address the India-Singapore Economic Convention. India and Singapore are expected to elevate relations by signing a strategic partnership. This will expand cooperation in key areas like smart city and urban solutions, skill development, connectivity and economic cooperation. India was Singapore's 13th largest trading partner in 2014-15, while Singapore is among the largest foreign investors in India. Before wrapping up his visit, the Prime Minister will also address the Indian diaspora in Singapore. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, the Joint Parliamentary Committee on Land Acquisition Bill has unanimously decided to ask for more time to submit its report. The JPC would ask the Parliament to extend its term for 3 weeks. The committee met on Monday, just 3 days before the winter session of Parliament is to begin. According to sources, members of the Congress and the Trinamool Congress said any meeting of the JPC was useless until the government cleared its stand on the pending land bill in the Rajya Sabha. These members also said that Prime Minister Narendra Modi had announced in his radio program Mann Ki Baat that the government was not pushing this bill anymore. The JPC is examining 14 contentious clauses of the land bill on which there is no consensus yet. Well, Finance Minister Arun Jaitley met chairmen and MDs of public sector banks and financial institutions. He reviewed steps taken by the government and the central bank to improve their asset quality. Jaitley said that the government has been proactive in taking measures to address problems in stressed sectors.
Calling bad debts of banks a legacy issue, the finance minister is confident that banks can win their battle against willful defaulters. According to him, the imminent bankruptcy law will only empower them further. Gross NPAs of public sector banks rose to 6.03% in June 2015. They were 5.2% in March 2015. In August, the government announced 70,000 crore capital infusion in PSBs over 4 years, starting with 25,000 crore this fiscal.
Series of steps which the Reserve Bank has announced, which some of the banks have been implementing, will certainly improve on the quality of those assets. Additionally, the government also has been extremely proactive in responding to each of the sectors.
Jaitley also reviewed credit offtake by sectors like home, education and corporates, the Jan Dhan Yojana and Prime Minister's social security schemes.
The banking system, which is the lifeline of the economy, continues to fund various segments of the economy in order to grow. Now that the growth rates are somewhat picking up, and therefore the pressures of the past need to be removed as far as possible.
The government also has plans to sell shares in state-run companies when the market improves. It could raise about $14.4 billion by reducing stake in state-run banks to 52%. But so far, the government is struggling to meet its asset sale targets to plug its deficit. Kriti Mishra, Rajya Sabha TV.
Meanwhile, industry body ASSOCHAM has claimed that prices of sugar could rise from early next year. This as production targets are expected to fall. ASSOCHAM says that this indicates that farmers are shifting to other crops amid rising cane arrears. Here's more.
The deficient monsoon is almost certain to force a sugar shortage now. Output is expected to dip to 27 million tons in 2015-16, 5% lower than 28.31 million tons produced in 2014-15. Sugarcane production was estimated at 28 million tons in July. Industry body ASSOCHAM estimates that an El Nino impact could adversely affect cane production next year as well. Not only that, given the present aggressive sugar export strategy, the declining production is expected to put pressure on prices from 2016.
Farmers are not getting their due on a regular basis, and therefore the farmers are increasingly switching over to other cash crops rather than the sugarcane. And that will become a worrying factor over a period of time, in another few months' time.
Experts want the government to take into account domestic needs and availability to ensure that current low prices don't go the way pulses and onion have.
Sugar prices do not determine the prices of sugarcane alone. There is molasses, there is press mud, there's bagasse. Bagasse, you have electricity these days, you have paper, molasses, you have liquor.
India is already facing a huge shortage of vegetable oil and pulses. Now with sugar also joining in, the recurring failure of monsoon is expected to add to the overall inflationary pressure. This is Kriti Mishra's report for Rajya Sabha TV.
Moving on now, Union Food Minister Ramvilas Paswan assured the government was taking steps to curb the tomato price rise. Paswan said output had not declined and the price of over 60 rupees per kilogram was due to disruption in supply from rain-affected South India. On pulses, for which prices are still above 180 rupees per kilogram, Paswan said that the government had taken a slew of measures, including imposing stock limits and action against hoarders and importers. Moving on to news from the other side of the border. Now, Nepal's Deputy Prime Minister has told India's envoy that the country is facing a humanitarian crisis. This comes as a fresh round of violence hit the nation following the killing of 4 protesters in police firing. Meanwhile, political parties have agreed to table a constitution amendment bill over the demands made by the Madeshis.
Major political parties in Nepal have agreed to table a constitution amendment bill to accommodate the demands of Indian origin Madeshis over the division of their homeland and better representation. This move comes in the wake of the spiraling Madeshi protests against the new constitution.
हम छलफल करने को तैयार हैं या नेपाल से किस किस को बुलाना है, बुला के हम लोग फॉर्मली इनफॉर्मली ट्रैक 2 ट्रैक 3 कैसे भी इसको सुलझाना है, समय न गंवाएं। भारतवर्ष तो देखिए महान है, बड़ा देश से कोई फर्क नहीं पड़ेगा, नहीं पड़ता है, लेकिन नेपाल तो बर्बाद हो रहा है। नेपाल की बर्बादी में भारत का कोई लाभ नहीं है।
The decision to table the amendment bill was taken after Prime Minister KP Oli called a meeting of all major political parties at his residence on Monday to find a way out of the ongoing political crisis. Violence returned to the landlocked Himalayan nation that is reeling under acute shortage of essential goods like fuel and LPG due to a 2-month-long blockade of key border trade points with India called by the Madeshis.
जो बीरगंज के नाका में जो स्टैंडर्ड ट्रक्स हैं, करीब 6000 के लगभग में ट्रक्स हैं, उनको स्पेशली हॉस्पिटल सप्लाईज और जैसे पेट्रोलियम प्रोडक्ट्स को रीरूट करने के लिए हम जैसे पहले कार्रवाई कर चुके हैं, उसको जल्दी करें तो शायद एयरलिफ्ट नहीं करना पड़ेगा।
The meeting of the Nepalese parliament is scheduled for Thursday. The Madeshi front has been obstructing proceedings at the house over its demands. A number of incidents of violence have been reported in different areas in the Terai region, especially after 4 protesters were gunned down in police firing. Meanwhile, Nepal's Deputy Prime Minister Kamal Thapa told Indian Ambassador to Nepal that the country is heading towards a humanitarian crisis. While Nepal has been alleging that India is behind the unofficial blockade of goods to Nepal, New Delhi has denied any such involvement. India has, however, called for a political resolution to the ongoing crisis. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
And it's time for a short break now. On the other side, we'll bring you all the international and sports news. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. Welcome back. You're watching Rajya Sabha Television. Well, the government has declared November 26th as Constitution Day. A host of activities have been lined up for the day on Thursday to pay tribute to Dr. B.R. Ambedkar. A special session of Parliament has been planned in which MPs will pay tribute to one of the key framers of the Constitution of India. There are also plans to illuminate the Parliament House complex on the day. The Constitution was adopted on November 26th in 1949 before it came into force on January 26th, 1950. The Constitution Day events will be a part of a year-long nationwide celebration to mark the 125th birth anniversary of Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, the Dalit icon. Colleges have been urged to organize mock parliament sessions and debates on the Constitution on November 26th. Schools have been asked to ensure that students should read out the preamble to the Constitution in school assembly on the day. Well, the NDA will hold a meet on Wednesday to firm up its strategy for the winter session. The government is likely to face opposition from the Congress-led opposition over a host of issues, including the alleged rise in intolerance in the country. With land ordinance allowed to lapse, the government's priority in the session will be to take up 3 other ordinance-related bills. Parliamentary Affairs Minister M. Venkaiah Naidu will meet leaders of all NDA allies to discuss the ruling combined strategy to push its legislative business and pass key bills with proper flow coordination. The monsoon session of Parliament was a near washout and the government could not carry forward its legislative agenda. There are 8 pending bills in the Lok Sabha and 11 in the Rajya Sabha. Key pending bills include the Goods and Services Tax and Land Bill, which are pending before a joint committee of Parliament. The winter session will run from November 26 to December 23rd. Well, here's a look now at the news and events lined up for today in our segment, The Day Ahead. Counting of votes for the by-polls of 2 Lok Sabha and 5 Assembly constituencies will take place today. The polls were held on November 21st. Lok Sabha seats which went to by-polls are Ratlam in Madhya Pradesh and Warangal in Telangana. Out of 5 Assembly constituencies, 2 are from Manipur and 1 each from Madhya Pradesh, Manipur and Meghalaya. Top ULFA leaders will meet Union Home Secretary Rajiv Mehrishi to discuss ways forward for a possible peace agreement ahead of next year's Assam Assembly polls. Mehrishi will review various aspects of ULFA's demands with a delegation of the insurgent group led by Chairman Arbinda Rajkhowa. ULFA delegation is also likely to meet Home Minister Rajnath Singh during their visit to the national capital. A Delhi court will hear Himachal Pradesh Chief Minister Veerbhadra Singh's plea in a disproportionate assets case. Veerbhadra Singh has accused the CBI of not furnishing the complete copy of the FIR lodged against him. The CBI had registered a preliminary inquiry which was converted into a regular case this September against Singh and his family members for allegedly amassing wealth to the tune of 6.1 crore rupees. Going on to some international news now, US President Barack Obama will host his French counterpart Francois Hollande at the White House later today. Both leaders will discuss strategies to step up the fight against Islamic State. Meanwhile, in Paris, security forces have sealed off the streets after a possible suicide vest was found in a garbage can. A lockdown continues in Brussels and the US has issued a travel advisory to all its citizens. Here's more.
A worldwide travel alert has been issued by the US for its citizens in the wake of increased terrorist threats. The US State Department claimed that fresh reports suggest possible multiple terror attacks by the Islamic State group, Al-Qaeda, Boko Haram and other terrorist groups. The alert will remain in place till 24th February 2016. The US advisory insists their citizens to be vigilant in public places or while using public transportation. They have also advised to avoid large crowds.
I think in general, Homeland Security does a really good job, and I'm not that worried about it. And you really can't worry about it because if it's going to happen, it's going to happen. You know, you got to live your life, like they said. We can't let the terrorists win.
I want to travel to Jamaica, but I can't now. I'm scared, so I won't be traveling there.
The US announcement comes after France stepped up airstrikes against IS in Syria. French President Francois Hollande will meet US President Barack Obama at the White House to discuss ways and means to confront the terror threat. Earlier on Monday, Hollande met EU Council President Donald Tusk and discussed security concerns, especially in its external borders. Meanwhile, the White House said that European partners should improve sharing intelligence information to avoid possible terrorist attacks.
States, since has long-standing information sharing agreements with countries in Europe. This is actually an area where we do believe that there is more that our European partners can do in terms of improving the quality and quantity of information that they share with one another.
French security officials have found a possible suicide vest in a garbage can in Paris suburbs. They suspect it could belong to Salah Abdeslam, the only suspect in Paris attacks who is believed to be alive and is still on the run. Fresh reports suggest that his phone was traced to the area where suicide vest was found. Lockdown continues in Brussels. A highest security alert level is on. However, the metro system and schools are expected to reopen on Wednesday. The Belgian police meanwhile released 15 suspects they had arrested in raids on Sunday.
Nous considérons que nous sommes toujours confrontés au même type de menaces telles que j'ai pu le présenter hier et nous considérons que les cibles potentielles sont les mêmes que celles qui ont été présentées hier. Je rappelle, ce sont les endroits fort fréquentés comme par exemple les zones commerçantes.
As panic grips the world in wake of Paris terror attacks, the New York State Police has launched an app which allows people to report suspicious activity by sending photographs or text messages from their mobile to the state's Division of Homeland Security and Emergency Services. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, another shocking incident of violence was reported on Sunday in the US. At least 16 people were hospitalized after a shooting broke out in a New Orleans park in America. Here's a report.
16 people were injured in a shootout in a New Orleans playground on Monday. The horrific incident unfolded when two groups opened fire on each other, endangering about 600 people watching a music video shoot. Witnesses said at least two gunmen shot into the crowd and both groups ran off immediately after the gunfire. The New Orleans mayor urged people to come forward with information about the gunmen.
At the end of the day, it's really hard to police against a bunch of guys that decide to pull out guns and settle their disputes with 300 people in between them. That's just not something that you can tolerate in the city. And, again, at the end of the day, it's going to require the people who were in this park to basically say they had enough and they're not going to put themselves in harm's way and to give us information so that the police can do their job.
There was scheduled to be a video filming or video shoot, however you want to call it, here at the playground. The information was probably circulated through social media, and there were hundreds of people, upwards of 500 people, probably in this playground when this erupted. It was an unpermitted, unplanned thing, so we did not know about it until we learned that these people were in the playground, and our officers were then dispatched to come and remove them from the playground.
US President Barack Obama has expressed concern over such incidents. This is the latest in a series of random shootouts. In fact, a study claims there are more chances of dying in such incidents in the US than any other crime. Almost 90 incidents of gunfire take place every year. That's nearly 1 in 3 of 292 such incidents globally between 1966 and 2012. And in more than half of these cases, the shooter had more than one firearm. The report also suggests the United States has more guns than any other country, which is an estimated 270 million to 310 million firearms in circulation in America for a population of 318.9 million. Bureau Report, Rajya Sabha TV.
Well, let's take a look now at some of the other international news in our World Wrap. Iran's supreme leader Ayatollah Ali Khamenei said that the US policies threatened both Tehran and Moscow. His comments came as Iran hosted Russian President Vladimir Putin in Tehran on Monday. He also called for closer ties between the two countries. This also comes in the wake of the Syrian civil war, which has evolved into a proxy struggle between global powers, with Russia and Iran supporting Syrian President Bashar al-Assad against the West. In a mark of protest, migrants stuck on the border between Greece and Macedonia sued their lips together against not being allowed to continue their journey to European countries. Hundreds of migrants have been protesting after Macedonia limited passage to only those fleeing conflict areas. Restrictions came in the wake of the horrific Paris attacks 2 weeks ago. Ukraine has suspended deliveries of goods in Crimea as the region still reels under a major power blackout. Only few essential services are operational in Crimea after key electricity pylons connected to the peninsula were knocked down in Ukraine. Protesters, including Crimean Tatars, are preventing the repair work. Russia, meanwhile, warned of retaliatory measures. At least 2 pilots were killed when a US Army Apache helicopter crashed in central South Korea on Monday during a training mission. The identities of the pilots have been withheld. Nearly 28,500 US troops are stationed in South Korea in joint defense with its forces against the North. Moving on to some sports news now, and here's some overnight sports-related news in our sports beat. In a mixed day for men's hockey, India beat #1 ranked Australia 3-2 in the third and final test after a last-minute goal from Akashdeep Singh. However, India lost the series that was decided by a shootout which ended 3-2 in Australia's favour. VR Raghunath, Akashdeep Singh and Captain Sardar Singh failed to score in the shootout. Rohan Bopanna and his doubles partner Florin Mergia rose 3 places in the latest men's world doubles rankings to be at number 9. The Indo-Romanian pair had finished runners-up at the ATP World Tour. Meanwhile, in the women's doubles, the reigning Wimbledon and US Open champions Sania Mirza and Martina Hingis remained the world #1 pair. Suspended FIFA President Sepp Blatter and Vice President Michel Platini could face 7-year bans from football if found guilty of corruption claims. FIFA ethics investigators have opened proceedings against the two and are likely to announce its verdict by Christmas. Both Blatter and Platini are serving 90-day provisional bans. They, however, deny any wrongdoing. The International Olympic Committee announced French as the official language for the 2016 Olympic Games. A ceremony was held with members of Brazil's French community who held a minute's silence in honor of the victims of this month's Paris attacks. French has long been considered the official language of the Olympic Games, with its opening and closing ceremonies partially held in French. Well, that's it on this edition of the Breakfast News. Have a good day.